Hi everybody. Today we're going to learn how to mass produce locations. Locations, as you may have learned from using Manifold, and we're looking at Manifold Release 9 here, are something like items like this, like France, where you can right-click and choose View an Active Window, and immediately pans and zooms you to a particular location. Locations are extremely useful. So, for example, there have been lists of locations published, like this one, which we call Google Locations, which will immediately turn off the street map so we can use a satellite image here. Which will immediately take you to, say, this guitar forest in Argentina, which is a location of a forest in Argentina that was planted in the shape of a guitar. Or here's the Jesus Loves You symbol in Idaho. And here's Grand Prismatic Spring in Yellowstone. So the nice thing about locations is that you can use them as kind of like bookmarks, where they immediately take you to a particular zoom, giving you the center of a view and the particular scale that you want. We call these Google locations because most of them are published on the web as being famous locations that people want to look at in Google. But Google is actually kind of slow compared to Bing Maps satellite imagery, so we're going to turn off the Bing Google Maps satellite layer. Instead, we're going to use the Bing Maps layer here. Now, what we'd like to do is we'd like to mass produce these lists so that if you have some lists that you've downloaded from the web, for example, here's a table that's famous chateau in France. And what it is, it's got the name of the chateau and the latitude and longitude for each chateau. You can get all sorts of geocoded tables like this, whatever you're interested in, be it in-and-out restaurants, be it houses for sale, or whatever the case may be. And to turn these into lists of locations like these that somebody can just click on is easy to do if we use a script like this one here called Create Locations. Now, the Create Location script takes the name of a table called Locations, and it looks for fields called name, scale, longitude, and latitude. This is just a quick, simple script. The intention is to teach people how to write scripts like this. You could do a more elaborate script, of course, which would prompt the user to click on a table or something like that. But this one uses the hardwired name, locations for the table, and uses the hardwired field names, name, scale, longitude, and latitude. That's easy to do. Whatever table you have, you can just rename the fields here to be name, longitude, and latitude, and then add a scale field for whatever it is that you want. So if we wanted to, say, create a list of locations that showed us all these chateaux, we would copy this table here, famous table, copy, and down here I'll paste it so it's so it doesn't clutter up the project so much, and I'll rename it now to locations. And now I can use the create location script that's there, and if I run that script, what it'll do is it'll create a location for each record in that table and put them all in a folder called Locations. And we just ran the script by clicking the Run button. It's that quick, of course, and here are the locations that we created. Let's take a look at where some of these are indeed located. Let's start with the Chateau De Chambord, which is the big chateau of them all. And there it is the chateau created by Francois I, protector and friend of Leonardo da Vinci. In fact, speaking of Leonardo, here's the Chateau d'Amboise, which is the famous fortress, which was Francois' fortress that's on the Loire at Amboise. And if you walk up the side street here, you get to this chateau right there, which is where Leonardo died. That's the chateau where Leonardo lived, that was connected by an underground passage to the great chateau at Amboise. And Leonardo lived the last few years of his life in France under the protectorship of Francois I. Let's take a look at a few more chateaux. Here's the Chateau de Ville. And Ville is the one with the famous gardens, which you can see laid out here. Here's the Chateau De Chambord, which is a great, truly terrific chateau that used to belong to Catherine de Medici, and then she traded Chambord to Diane de Poitiers in exchange for the Chateau de Chenonceau. If you want to see what this chateau looks like, there's a photograph which we've downloaded from Wikipedia, taken from a spot right about here on the footpath, and that's what Chambord looks like. So when you actually visit these chateaux in person, they're quite impressive. This particular chateau is in very good shape. It has a functioning drawbridge here over the dry moat that surrounds it, and on the other side is a cliff dropping off down towards the Loire River. And how can you actually use this capability to mass-produce locations? Well, there's all kinds of ways you can use it. For example, if we have real estate for sale, I'm going to delete that folder, and let's delete that table too. So, for example, let's say we're in the business of selling chateau, and we have this table here which has a list of chateaux that are for sale. It's a geocoded table, latitude and longitude and scale, and the name for each one. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy that table. We'll paste it down here and rename that locations. So now we can use our script to turn that into a list of locations. And I don't have to open the script. I can just right-click on it and click Run. And right away it creates this folder called Locations. And that location has the various chateaux that are for sale. Let's take a look at some of them. Here's a nice chateau, which is surrounded by a moat and has a swimming pool, and it's actually kind of a rather affordable chateau. You can buy something like this out in the country in France for well under $1 million these days. Here's another chateau, view an active window. There's kind of with two round towers if you like the tower look. Let's see what this one is. This one is kind of a ruin. This is probably only a few $100,000, so it's mainly some ruined fortifications. Here's a very cool chateau, the Chateau de Chambord. And this one is probably worth taking a look at in Google because it is located right on the Saône River. It's on a high cliff overlooking the Saône River. And we've downloaded a photo of it from the real estate listing for that chateau, and that's what it looks like. This is the cliffside. And here's the main house, and there's a few towers. And on this side, there's a drawbridge and a dry moat. So it's kind of like a fortified chateau. And believe it or not, this chateau has just recently changed hands. I believe it's sold for well under $3 million, about $2.5 million. So you can actually buy the chateau for a chateau like this in France for less than you would spend on a bungalow in California. In fact, there's a house for sale right now on Middlefield Road in Palo Alto, which is about 900 square feet, which is less than 100 square meters, and they want $2.5 million for it. So imagine you can buy a chateau like this in France for less than that house in Palo Alto. Of course, the chateau in France will cost you a lot more to maintain. I'm going to turn off the Google satellite, which I can go faster with Bing. And you can see the chateau here. There's a quarry here, which is out of sight, but I suppose there's trucks. There's a small village. And when you're buying a place in France, you really want to take a look at what the nearest support city is, because you don't want to be stuck way out in the country someplace where you can't get into a good restaurant or shop at Galeries Lafayette. This particular chateau is not far from, it's right here, and it's not far from Grenoble. So if you want to see about how far it is, we can use the tracker tool to calculate. And it's from right about here. Click, 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 click. We'll just estimate here. So that's about 60 kilometers, something like that. So that's about a 45-minute drive to 40-minute drive to drive into Grenoble on this highway. And Grenoble is actually a pretty cool town. It's a very large town. It has an IKEA there, and there's Galeries Lafayette, and everything you need for a life in France. So that shows you how you might use something like this if you're in the business of selling real estate, and you want to tell somebody, hey, I sent you a list of properties to look at, and take a look at them, and they can just right-click on the location and zoom in. There's a nice chateau with turrets. Probably buy that for about $700,000, maybe a little less, you can show real estate properties. You can show plots of land. You can do all kinds of things if you're in the business of selling forest properties or farms or whatever. Locations are definitely the way to go, and they're certainly a great way for, as we've seen, for educational uses as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you need to create lots of locations automatically from tables like this one, you can do that with the Create Locations script. That's just the ticket. It'll do hundreds of them at once if you want. And so they're very easy to use. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.